right, guys, welcome into this week's One Gotta Go. We were talking earlier this week. Dom was watching Spaceballs, and it made me think of all the good Mel Brooks movies that are out there. And so I hit up Jason. I was like, "Hey, you might want to wear the white woman shirt out for this segment," without telling him exactly what it was.
Before we start, what's the results from last week?
Last week, the results were that losing weight and getting in shape gotta go. Everybody,
I think everybody hates those people in general.
I think that's the most normal New Year's resolution, but all right. So this week, as you can see, we got Mel Brooks movies. We got Blazing Saddles, History of the World Part 1, Spaceballs, and Robin Hood Men in Tights. And the order is when they came out. Who wants to kick us off?
I'll go.
Okay.
This is hard. Off top, Blazing Saddles going nowhere. Where the white women at? Robin Hood Men in Tights isn't going anywhere. And then Spaceballs. And I think I'm going biased just because I haven't seen History of the World Part 1 in so long that I'm going to have to kick that one off. I know it was funny, but everything else is fresher in my mind. So I'm going to go History of the World Part 1. You got to go.
Yeah, the exact same thing as Jason. I'm not a big comedy person, but Blazing Saddles, Spaceballs, and Robin Hood Men in Tights are some of the funniest movies that I watch. I mean, that stupid humor is what gets me, especially Spaceballs. Like Chris said, I watched it for the first time in decades, straight through last week, and I was losing it. I really was losing it. Finally, stuff that I was watching as a kid, finally started clicking, was like, oh, that's what that meant and everything. Again, watching it straight through, because sometimes I just watched it and just cut it off, but just watching it straight through had me dying. But History of the World Part 1, it's been a long, long time since I've seen that, so that's the one I have to go for me.
I think 3 out of these 4 movies have something that one doesn't. And for me, in the 90s, growing up as a kid, Spaceballs and Robin Hood Men in Tights are movies that I watched a lot. Just those were comedy movies that I could just put on anytime and just enjoy it and laugh and be funny. Blazing Saddles is a classic. It's still talked about, from being out in the 70s all these years later for a reason. It has so many great one-liners. All these movies do. They have so many great one-liners in them. But for me, History of the World Part 1, it starts out slow and it builds up and it gets to a point where it's just so funny. But the other ones you can just put on any time and just enjoy them start to finish. Mm-hmm. So for me, for that reason, just because it's the History of the World just doesn't get there right away. It's not start to finish funny. History of the World Part 1 can go for me. So we're actually all in agreement, which kind of surprised me, but
the fact that these still have rewatchability.
Yes.
Says they're classic.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think Blazing Saddles is still held as the funniest movie or the best comedy of all time. So
yeah, it definitely could be. It's definitely. I couldn't argue with that argument.
Yeah, I see it on number one on a lot of people's lists. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's this week's One Gotta Go for Mel Brooks movies. We'll put some polls out there. Hit us up in the comments and the polls and let us know which one that you think gotta go this week.